Have you ever stared at your bank account knowing that you should do something with that extra money, but you sit there completely frozen because you don't want to make the wrong choice? Welcome to today's episode of Financial Planning for Young Adults. Today I'm going to show you exactly how to deal with all of those different things that come our way in our mind and they get us all confused about money, whether it's paying off debt early, budgeting, maybe feeling restrictive instead of freeing, and the hurdle of starting to invest. All of them are hard in their own way, and they're all especially hard in our brain. I'm going to show you how to handle the behavioral side and the mental side of our money today. But I want to share a few housekeeping items for the show real quick here. You're going to notice that today's episode is a bit different. That's thanks to some great feedback that I got from those of you listening to the show. I'm shortening up the podcast episode today and going forward so that I can help you even faster. And I would love some more feedback and any thoughts that you have about the podcast so that I can continue to fine-tune and improve the show. But let's get back to what you came here for today, some great financial advice. I'm your money buddy and financial planner, Skylar Fleming, and let's get into today's episode. So let's set up the situation here today. Do you pay off debt early or not? That is such a common mental hurdle that we all have to cross and jump over at some point. What do you do with your cash that is just sitting there? Do you pay off your debt? You know that some of that money is for an emergency fund, but right now you're maybe not worried about losing your job, so you don't know what to do with that extra cash. You just sit there and spin and you're not sure. You look at it, then you ignore it for a couple days and then it comes back into your mind. Well, here's my story about how my wife and I dealt with this same situation. We have dealt with it multiple times. We ended up deciding to pay off my motorcycle early. We paid off our current car early. We decided to not pay off her student loans early. We have a very specific plan for these. We set a target date of when we wanted to pay off the loans, and then we figured out what the payment would need to be in order to hit that date. And then we invest anything beyond that number. But the key piece there is the decision is different for each and every loan. We were comfortable with the time period of paying off the higher balance of our student loans versus just knocking out a few $1,000s that was left on an auto loan or my motorcycle. But it's always a real mental struggle. I want to make sure to acknowledge that. And I'm sure you have felt this as well. So now I'm going to teach you how to overcome that specific mental hurdle and a couple other ones that we all have to deal with our money. And trust me, every single person that I talk to, including myself, has to deal with these mental and emotional hurdles when it comes to our money. So let's learn together how to overcome them. I first want to talk about debt. And I'm going to show an image here on screen about how you and your parents are probably flip-flopped in terms of your comfort with debt. And this is really interesting to consider. Most of the time, if your parents were uncomfortable with debt, you're probably comfortable with debt. If they were comfortable, you're probably uncomfortable. How interesting is this? This can explain why you feel a certain way about credit cards or why you feel a certain way about student loans when maybe your parents were super comfortable with having debt, so you're super uncomfortable with it, or vice versa. Think about debt with your parents and think about all the other areas with our money, because I think it likely stands that most of the time we tend to take an opposite view of our parents when it comes to money if we weren't really taught about money. We just take whatever we saw them do and we figure the opposite might be okay because we weren't really taught what to do. It's kind of a little bit of a weird proposition, but I've seen it play out in my life and my wife's life. We all feel kind of a little bit inverse to how our parents feel about debt. I'm sure this resonates with a lot of you out there. Your level of comfort is likely the exact opposite of your parents. And I think that's true about most of our money behaviors. And speaking of money behaviors, I want to talk about why our personal finance is so dependent on our behaviors. And we'll start here with the psychology of spending. It can have a significant impact on your finances. The psychology of spending is what drives us to make impulse purchases or unnecessary purchases. And if we can control this side of our psychology, and it can give us a huge benefit to manage our money a whole lot easier if we can control the psychology of spending. I got a quote here I want to share from an article that I'll link in the show notes. It says, "It's common for individuals to procrastinate on setting up a savings plan or creating a budget, often due to the perceived complexity or discomfort associated with dealing with money matters." And now I do want to offer some comfort. It's not that you're avoiding it. You have this decision paralysis because everywhere you turn, someone is telling you something different. And that's what leads us to procrastinate it. Money can become so much easier if you overcome this procrastination with setting up a plan. Now, it doesn't have to be a full-blown budget or a full-blown holistic financial plan, But even something simple and a very simple, easy plan or some simple goals are going to be massive in terms of getting you some momentum towards making some positive decisions in your personal finances. This next tip, I'm willing to bet it's going to save you a ton of money. It's called the 48-hour rule. I like to call it the 24-hour rule, but it still has the same principle. The whole idea here is that you set a time period that anytime you go to make a purchase, especially an online purchase where you put it in a cart, require yourself to wait 24 to 48 hours. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, this is going to save you more money than anything else. And guess what? You won't feel bad about not making the purchase. The whole goal of this is to give yourself and your mind some time to pause, think, and let your emotions become removed from the purchase. Because how many times do we make that impulsive purchase on Amazon because it feels good, or it's something that I want right now, or it's a tiny little minor problem that feels really big right now, so we have to solve it right now. But impulse purchases can be one of the most damaging things to our personal finances. And of course, all these marketers and everything out there is going to make you feel like you need to purchase it right now. But guess what? You don't need to purchase really anything right away. It can all wait. So a 24-hour or a 48-hour rule can be a massive benefit towards overcoming that impulse spending that we talked about at the beginning and helping your mind realize that you don't need to make the purchase, and it's going to end up saving you a ton of money. So what other ways besides waiting on a purchase can we modify our behavior? Well, I have 3 things from that same article that I'm going to share with you here. The first thing is SMART goals, which is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound goals. Also make sure you're using technology. And then the last one is to reframe budgeting. You should see budgeting less as a restriction and more as an opportunity to gain financial freedom. Let's talk about all 3 of those things here real quick. SMART goals, they're a great way to get started with a simple plan. It doesn't have to be some big giant financial plan that encompasses your entire life. So instead of giving yourself something general like save money or something super overwhelming like build a holistic financial and retirement plan, try something like this. Tell yourself I'm going to save $200 a month automatically for the next 6 months to build a $1,200 emergency fund. There's a great example of a SMART goal and one that's going to help you make some progress and make a decision towards a specific goal. And if you feel like budgeting is overwhelming, start with a simple SMART goal and get moving in the right direction. And of course, there's going to be bigger things that you may need to do beyond your SMART goal, but it's a great first step. And then of course, don't be afraid of technology. You're going to find that the money you have to put into using some technology is going to be well worth it. Try out something like Monarch Money and see how it does for you. But the last piece about reframing budgeting, this is absolutely essential. I love to look at budgeting as an opportunity to spend money in ways that work for my financial plan. If you look at budgeting in a positive outlook, I promise it's going to motivate you a lot and it's going to change your whole opinion around budgeting. It's going to feel way less restrictive and it's going to feel more freeing and opportunity giving. This next article is titled Navigating the Psychology of Money, a Guide to Behavioral Finance. And the one thing that I wanted you to take from this is to incorporate accountability mechanisms. Accountability partners are a massive deal. That's what this whole community, our group of Money Buddies is all about. That's why I like to call us the Money Buddies. This whole community is a group of friends and a group of Money Buddies that's here to help each other with money. So if you need someone to help you stay on track with your money goals, please reach out. I'd love to just help keep you accountable through emails or whatever it might be. Because if we can stay accountable with other people, we're a whole lot more likely to make decisions and keep up our momentum that's helping us with our personal finances. One of the last mental hurdle areas that I want to talk about here is investing. I mentioned that we're going to talk about investing, so here it goes. I hear the same problem so many times. So many people are nervous to take the initial plunge and put some money into the stock market. There's always concerns about it feeling like gambling or feeling like you're going to lose all your money. And I can assure you, it's not gambling and it's not going to lead to you losing all of your money if you have the right strategy in place. Avoid those option trading and gambling type strategies that you see apps like Robinhood pushing, and do go towards things like index fund investing. Simple, low-cost index funds are the way to go, and they're going to help calm down a whole lot of your fears when it comes to investing. But this next article is called The Psychology of Investing, 5 Mental Traps and How to Avoid Them. I'm going to list out the 5 of them, and then we're going to go through a few of them after that. First, analysis paralysis. Second, loss aversion. Third, sunk cost. 4, pseudo-certainty. And 5, superiority. Well, if you're taking the simple index fund approach that I just mentioned, guess what? You're going to be able to completely avoid analysis paralysis because you're going to know that you have a simple plan in place that you're going to be able to actually stick to, and that you don't have to waste your time trying to pick the right stock or analyzing all the different charts or whatever may be out there. Now, loss aversion, that can be a tricky one to overcome. But guess what? There's no reward without risk. And I want to flip risk on its head, because if you're only using something like a safe investment like CDs or even just your savings account, the risk is inflation and opportunity costs. The risk is not losing your money. The risk is your money not going up fast enough to make it worth anything in the future. A set it and forget it approach with index funds is going to help both with analysis paralysis and loss aversion, because over the long term, your risk of losing money decreases exponentially. Because the longer you invest, the more time your money has to grow, making your likelihood of losing money even smaller. And I also want to caution one behavior that can lead to some mental challenges around investing, and that's checking your investments too often. You need to build a set it and forget it approach so that you don't have to check your investments more than a few times a year, if that. So if you stick to a set it and forget it approach, not only do you remove the need to analyze your investments, which is going to take away analysis paralysis, but you also now begin to remove the worry of it going down, and you're also going to remove the need to check it all the time, because you know it's just going to continue doing what it does. I also want to talk here about the pseudo-certainty trap and the superiority trap. But first, let's talk about pseudo-certainty. This is the trap where you think some other high-risk investment is going to fix your current investing woes. You might see someone else making a ton of money on something super risky like a crypto investment, for example. It can be easy to see their gain and think that you're just going to be able to jump right on top of that and it's going to fix all of your investing problems that you've made so far. But guess what? A set it and forget it index approach fixes this as well, because your boring index fund is where you need to be. And you know, over the long run, your investment, it's going to be a whole lot less volatile and a whole lot easier to stomach both the ups and downs. So don't look at someone else's gains and think you're just going to go chasing that and be able to jump right on the same ship and get all of those exact same gains when it comes to the risky investments. I think a lot of the challenges and psychology around investing is frankly due to a lack of education around a simple index fund approach. A lot of people think that you need to go out and pick the perfect stock, or that you need to invest in the perfect thing at the perfect time, or that you need to trade options in order to make money, and that's just not the truth. You can invest simply with an index fund and come out way on top and have a much easier time getting there. But that last trap is superiority. This is when you think, oh, I'm a smart person, I'm going to beat the market. Guess what? You're not going to do it. It's just not possible. Don't think that you're superior to other investors or supercomputers or just the market as a whole. The market is so complex and so efficient that it's impossible to beat the market over the long run. So please just go out there and stick to a simple, easy, set it and forget it index fund approach. And I really hope you enjoyed some of these different mental aspects of debt, budgeting, and investing. I do want to share one of the most common objections that I see, and that's people wanting to pay down debt versus saving for retirement. We're going to talk about it in more specific detail here in just a second with today's real-world application, but please know that if you have a lower interest rate, it may be better to save for retirement. But if you have high interest rate credit card debt, pay that off. You need to get out of credit card debt. You need to work hard to get out of and stay out of credit card debt. But if you have something with an interest rate lower than 6 or 7%, that's where this next segment talking about some real world application, and I'm going to show you some math behind it as well. It's going to be super helpful in overcoming the mental hurdle that is deciding between paying off debt and investing. So here in today's real world application and today's case study, we have Alex, who's 27 years old and is making $75,000 a year. His current financial situation is that he's contributing 6% to a 401k to get the company match. And then after all of his other financial obligations, he has about $500 extra a month to use towards whatever goal he wants. So his debt situation is what's going to come in play here. He has a student loan with $32,000 remaining at 5.2% interest. The minimum monthly payment is $340. Then he has an auto loan of $18,000 at a 4.8% interest rate. The minimum payment is $385. This car's reliable, well-maintained. He's not worried about replacing it anytime soon. Alex doesn't have any other debt. He pays off his credit cards every single month. He doesn't carry credit card debt or really any other debt. So he's able to make these minimum payments, and he has $500 left over that he wants to figure out what to do with it. So Alex, just like the rest of us, has heard so much conflicting advice online. Some big internet voices tell him to pay off all the debt once he gets to that company match, and that he should avoid debt outright. Some people tell him he needs to invest a lot and take advantage of compound interest while he's young. So he feels paralyzed, like all of us do when it comes to making these decisions. He doesn't want to make the wrong choice that may cost him thousands of dollars, because there's a lot of money at stake, right? Compound interest is a big deal. So what should Alex do? How does he build a system around what's going to work and what is comfortable mentally. After all, that's what this whole episode about. It's not always about the math. Sometimes it's about what is mentally and emotionally comfortable for us with money. In this situation, Alex found himself asking something that is similar to what we have all found ourselves asking at some point. He said, should I put this extra $500 a month towards paying off my loans faster, or should I invest it for my future? I feel like I'm going to lose either way. Either I'm going to miss out on investment growth, or I'm going to be paying more interest than I need to. Of course, the numbers do matter in this. It's going to help us make a decision here. But Alex is feeling anxious because every single month he sees that $500 extra sitting there and he doesn't know what to do with it. There's real anxiety in making either decision, but there is also a heavy anxiety in making no decision. He feels like he's going to fail either way. I am sure we have all felt stuck at some point where we don't want to make a decision because we're worried that either one is going to be the wrong one. So what do you do in this case? Well, let's talk about the math and what would happen right now if Alex were to do something with that $500. If Alex were to put the $500 a month towards a student loan, it would save him about $6,199 in interest. If Alex were to put the $500 towards his auto loan, it would save him about $1,133 in interest. If the decision were between which two of his loans to use this money towards, it's obvious it should go towards the highest interest rate and those student loans. So now comes the tricky part that I promised to help you all with. How do you figure out the balance between investing and paying off debt? Well, I want to reference back to episode 11, where I talked about pausing retirement contributions and the 6% rule. In that episode, we covered a research article from Fidelity that talked about 6% being the general point where you want to look at paying off the debt or not. If your interest rate is less than 6%, then you should consider putting that money into your retirement account. If it's more than 6%, then consider paying it off. Now that right there, that rule of thumb might be just enough that you need to make a decision. So if that is it, then please go out and make a decision and decide what to do with your extra money, whether it's investing or paying off the debt faster. Rules of thumb can be extremely helpful, but if you want to get into the nitty-gritty about how to handle this emotionally, let's walk through Alex's situation. Let's talk about the investing side of this. If Alex were to put $500 per month and invest it with an 8% rate of return, that lands us with a little more than $30,000 in growth and return on the money. It seems obvious which one to do, right? Invest the money. So why is this still so challenging? Well, because if you put money towards the loan gets paid off faster, and then you can put the minimum payment of the loan back into investing even more money. How does that stack up? Well, if you were to pay off the student loan with the $500, it would be paid off in about 3.5 years. And then that would save you $6,000 in interest, and your money in total, if you use the extra to go towards investing, would still grow by about $19,000. You end up coming in around $25,000 in terms of money saved on the interest and the growth on the money. So it's less money than just putting it all into investing, but now your student loan's out of the way. Doesn't this sound appealing? That's what's so tricky about all this. I would honestly, in this situation, recommend we find a balance between the two because it's not all about the math. And when the numbers come out close enough like this, you could just split it for ease of mind. Maybe you want to make a decision that's just an easy 50-50 split. I would recommend putting the majority towards your retirement in this case and putting a little bit extra towards the loan to pay it off faster and to get ahead of that minimum payment. So I would say $200 extra per month towards the loan, and then anything extra beyond that should go towards investing. I didn't touch on the auto loan because in this situation, the interest rate was small enough and the balance was small enough. I think it's just going to get knocked out naturally over time, and that's okay. We can go ahead and just let it run its course. The thing that's really so tricky is that debt has an end date, whereas investing for our retirement doesn't really have a specific end date. It can be so much harder to conceptualize when we're going to need that money that we're saving for retirement. So the main takeaway for you is going to be to strike a balance, which I know is still leaving it on a little bit of a tricky point, but that's okay. The main thing is to make a decision. No matter what, you're not going to make the wrong one if you're balancing between two right decisions. I would honestly recommend not going completely in one specific direction unless the math is completely obvious. Completely obvious to me would be something with a low interest rate like 4%, or if you're able to invest in a way that's making you over 10%. Then you go in that direction. So if you have a really low interest rate or you're making a really high rate of return on your investments, invest more money. Or if your interest rate is really high, pay off that debt. But if you're right around that 5, 6, 7, 8% range for debt, then it's really valuable to strike a balance that helps you feel comfortable about paying it off a little bit earlier and still investing some extra money. Because here's the big deal for each of us. If you're doing this planning and even just thinking through these different decisions, you're going to be okay. Relax, take a deep breath. You're going to continue to find ways to optimize your money and push yourself further and further to do even better with your money. So if you're deciding between two good decisions like paying off debt versus investing, just choose one. You're going to be okay. Take a deep breath, split it 50-50 if you have to, and make a decision, because you're not locked into this forever. Start with 50-50 for 3 months and then make an adjustment to what feels comfortable. It's going to be okay. Progress beats perfection. And if you really still feel like you can't take action on this, please reach out to me, because I'd love to help you overcome this hurdle. We can sit down and crunch the numbers and then make a decision that you feel most comfortable with. And that does it for today's episode. I really hope you enjoyed this new format. Please send me some feedback if you have any suggestions or ideas on ways to improve the show, or if you need any help figuring out which good decision to make with your money. The main action item for you today is to make a decision on that financial hurdle that you haven't been able to overcome. Use what you learned today. If your debt's under 6%, invest the extra money. If it's over 6%, split it. If it's even higher, pay off that debt fast. Or if it's a decision about getting started with budgeting, consider reframing it as an opportunity to make good decisions with your money. And I promise if you apply the things you learned today, you're going to be able to find some momentum and make a decision that works for you. And remember, no decision is going to be perfect, but making a decision is the right step forward. The opportunity lies in making a decision and continuing to move forward. And helping people figure out this balance between the math and the mental side of our money is something that I love helping people figure out. So I'd love to offer each and every one of you listening a free meeting where we can sit down, and I'm going to help you figure out both the mental side of all of this and the mathematical side of all of this, so that we can really nail down a good decision that you're comfortable with. So to take advantage of this, head over to the show notes or the description and scroll all the way to the bottom where I keep my best stuff saved for my money buddies, and you'll find a link there to schedule a free meeting with me, and we can work through your situation and help you make a decision today. I really hope you enjoyed this episode and the brand new format. If you're motivated to make a decision and overcome the mental hurdle with your money, go and do it right now. Take advantage of the momentum that you're feeling. And thank you for listening to today's episode. Next week, I'm going to help you gauge your financial situation with some great financial thermometers. So be sure to subscribe, and I'll talk to you next week. And hey, quick heads up. This podcast, it's meant to be educational and it's for entertainment purposes. It's not personalized financial advice for your specific situation. So before you go out and make any big money moves, make sure you chat with a qualified financial professional who knows your full financial picture.